How evil can a sister who doesn't love her twin really be? London, 1895. The room was silent. Only the laboured breathing of the elderly woman could be heard. The pale March light streaming through the window illuminated the 50-year-old woman. Her face was pale and worn. Her hands trembled, her eyes staring at the ceiling. Lord Thomas Thornton stood beside the bed. He was 65 years old, his hair completely white. He held his wife's hand. 30 years of marriage, 30 years of happiness. Now the final moments. In the other corner of the room, 2 adult children waited. Edward was 28, Victoria 25 years old. They knew their mother was dying. They were all prepared. Were they really? The woman moistened her lips. She was trying to speak. Thomas moved closer. The woman said something to him. Her voice was very weak. Thomas didn't hear. He moved even closer. The woman repeated it. This time Thomas heard. His face froze. He pulled back. He looked at his wife. He couldn't believe it. Edward and Victoria noticed. They ran to their father. What had happened? What had their mother said? Thomas was trembling. He couldn't open his mouth. He was staring at the woman. 30 years. He had lived with this woman for 30 years. He thought he knew who she was. The woman spoke again, this time clearer. She had gathered her voice, but her strength was now exhausted. Everyone in the room heard her. So what had the woman said? The woman had said this: "I am not Emma, I am Sarah." Thomas's hand fell away. He had released his wife's hand. He staggered backward. Shock and sorrow mingled on his face. Edward caught him. Victoria was crying. She didn't understand. What was Mother saying? Wasn't she Emma? Who was Sarah? Thomas asked, his voice trembling. He asked what she meant. He knew she was Emma. She had been Emma for 30 years. Who was Sarah? The woman closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. Then she told everything. "I am Sarah," she said. "My twin's name was Emma. 30 years ago, on the wedding morning, I killed Emma. Then I took her place. I wore her dress. You actually married her, but I lived as Emma for 30 years. But I am Sarah. I was always Sarah." The room turned to ice. Thomas fell to the floor. Edward tried to catch him, but couldn't. Both collapsed to the ground. Victoria screamed. She ran to her mother. She shook her. She asked what she was saying. Was it madness? Had death driven her mad? The woman opened her eyes. She looked at Victoria. She apologized. She apologized for lying to her children, but she had to tell the truth. 30 years of lies was enough. She couldn't carry it anymore. Thomas sat on the floor. He had buried his head in his hands. He was crying. 30 years. Had he lived with the wrong woman for 30 years? Didn't he even know who his wife was? Edward asked. Where was Emma? Where was the real Emma? The woman answered. Emma died 30 years ago, she said. The wedding morning in the garden. I threw her in the lake. Then I took her place. No one noticed. No one at all. Victoria looked on in horror. Was her mother a murderer? Had she killed her aunt? And had she been playing a role for 30 years? The woman was crying. She was apologizing. But her conscience was not at peace. For 30 years she had nightmares every night. She saw Emma's face. She asked for forgiveness, but received none. Now she was dying. She had to tell the truth. Thomas stood up. He left the room. He said nothing. He slammed the door. Edward and Victoria remained by the bed. Should they say Mother or Sarah? They no longer knew who she was. The woman closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed. 5 minutes later, she died. She died with 30 years of lies. But had the truth come out? Or was it just deathbed madness? Was this woman really Sarah? Or had death driven her mad? Did Emma really die 30 years ago? Or was this just a delusion? Let's go back to 1845, to the day the twins were born. The story began there. The foundation of 30 years of lies was laid there. Yorkshire, a cold November night. Lady Margaret Ashford was giving birth. The first child came, a girl, healthy and beautiful. The midwife was happy, but the birth wasn't over. A second baby was coming. Twins. The midwife was surprised. Twins? No one knew. There was no ultrasound back then. Pregnancy brought surprises. The second baby was born. Again a girl. again healthy. Lady Margaret was happy. 2 girls at once, twins. Lord Henry Ashford entered the room. He looked at the 2 babies. They were identical, completely identical, impossible to distinguish. They named them. The firstborn was Emma. The secondborn was Sarah. The babies grew. They were always together. Same clothes, same games, same room, twins. But over time, a difference emerged. When Emma and Sarah turned 5, everyone could see the difference. Physically, they were identical. Same face, same hair, same eyes. But their personalities were completely different. Emma was kind and affectionate. She got along with everyone. The servants loved her. Visitors loved talking to her. She was cheerful, patient, understanding. Sarah was quiet and dark. She didn't talk much. She avoided the servants. She wouldn't talk to visitors. Her facial expression was cold, impatient, distant. Her family noticed. Lord Henry and Lady Margaret were surprised. How could twins be so different? But there was an even bigger difference. Everyone preferred Emma. When visitors came, they would ask for Emma. "Where is Emma today?" they would ask. They would ask about Sarah. But if Emma wasn't there, they would be disappointed. School teachers praised Emma. Emma is smart, Emma is hardworking, Emma is perfect, they would say. Sarah was hardworking too, but no one noticed. At family dinners, everyone talked to Emma. Sarah would sit silently in the corner. Invisible. Sarah noticed. At 10 years old, she noticed. Everyone loved Emma more. Sarah was just the other twin, Emma's shadow. This hurt Sarah. But the hurt gradually transformed into something else. Jealousy. When they turned 15, the difference became even more pronounced. Emma had become beautiful. Sarah was beautiful too. Physically, they were identical. But Emma had something, a light, a warmth. She attracted people. Sarah didn't have it. Sarah was cold, distant. At social events, Emma would be surrounded by men. They wanted to dance, they wanted to talk. Emma would politely decline, but the attention never ended. Sarah would stand in the corner. No one wanted to dance with her. Sometimes someone would come, but they would ask for Emma, not "Where is Sarah? Where is Emma?" When they realised Sarah wasn't Emma, they would leave disappointed. Sarah was going crazy inside. Why Emma? Why always Emma? They had the same face, the same body. But Emma was special. Sarah wasn't. Sarah observed Emma, how she smiled, how she spoke, how she behaved. Maybe she could copy it. Maybe she could be loved too. She tried. She smiled like Emma. She spoke like Emma. But it didn't work. People noticed. Sarah was imitating Emma. They found it strange. Sarah gave up. The jealousy grew. Now it wasn't just hurt. It was turning to hatred. Sarah began to hate Emma. When they turned 20, everything changed. Lord Thomas Thornton came to visit Ashford Manor. He was 30 years old. Rich, handsome, unmarried. The perfect suitor. His family introduced him to Emma. Sarah was there too, but no one introduced Sarah. Emma was important. Thomas looked at Emma. Emma looked at him. It wasn't love at first sight, but something happened. A connection. A potential. Thomas visited several times. Each time he talked with Emma, Sarah was there too. But Thomas didn't even notice Sarah. His eyes were always on Emma. 3 months later, Thomas proposed. He proposed marriage to Emma. Emma accepted. The family was overjoyed. Lord Henry and Lady Margaret were crying with joy. Their daughter would marry a wealthy lord. The perfect marriage. Sarah congratulated her. She hugged Emma. She said she was happy, but she was burning inside. Why Emma? Again Emma. Always Emma. Thomas hadn't even seen Sarah. They were twins. Same face. But Thomas had only seen Emma. Sarah cried in her room that night. She screamed into her pillow. No one heard. The jealousy was now uncontrollable. The hatred had reached its peak. Sarah made a decision. Emma didn't deserve this. Sarah deserved it. Sarah should marry Lord Thomas, not Emma. But how? Sarah made a plan. A terrible plan. But Sarah no longer cared. Emma had to die. Sarah had made her decision. Emma would die, and before the wedding. Then Sarah would take Emma's place. No one would notice, because they were twins. Same face, same body, the perfect plan. But could Sarah do it? Could she really kill Emma? The wedding day was approaching. Sarah was ready. June 1865, Ashford Manor, the wedding day. Emma woke from sleep. The sun was streaming through the window. It was a beautiful day, the wedding day. Emma was excited, a little scared, but happy. Today she would marry Lord Thomas. Her new life would begin. The servants came to the room. They helped Emma get ready. The wedding dress was beautiful. White lace, pearls, silk. Perfect. Emma looked in the mirror. She didn't recognize herself. She was so beautiful, like a princess. The servants left. Emma was alone. She wanted to rest for a few minutes. The wedding was in a few hours. The door opened. Sarah entered. Emma smiled. It was nice to see her sister. Today was a special day. The twins would be together one last time. After Emma married, she would move to Thornton Manor. Sarah would stay at Ashford. Emma hugged Sarah. She said she would miss her. She said being sisters was always special. Sarah smiled, but her eyes were cold. Sarah made a request of Emma. She said she wanted to go to the garden. She said she wanted to walk together one last time, before the wedding. Emma agreed. It was a nice idea. The twins went out to the garden. Ashford Manor's garden was spacious. Trees, flowers, a pond, quiet and peaceful. Emma and Sarah walked. Emma was talking about the future, about Lord Thomas, about marriage plans, about children. Sarah was silent, listening, but her thoughts were different. They came to the pond. The water was still. The sun was reflecting. Emma stopped. She looked at the pond. "It's so beautiful," she said. Sarah approached from behind. Emma turned. She looked at Sarah. She smiled. Sarah didn't smile. Emma noticed. Something was wrong. Sarah's face was cold. Her eyes empty. Emma asked. "Was Sarah okay?" Sarah answered. No, she wasn't okay. She had never been okay, because of Emma. Emma didn't understand. What did she mean, Sarah explained. 20 years. 20 years living in Emma's shadow. Everyone loved Emma. No one saw Sarah. Emma was perfect. Sarah was invisible. And now Emma was getting married. To Lord Thomas. The marriage Sarah deserved. Emma was shocked. What was Sarah saying? Did she hate her sister? Sarah said yes. She hated her. She had always hated her. Emma stepped back. She was afraid. Sarah's eyes were mad. Sarah lunged forward. Emma tried to run, but Sarah was faster. Sarah grabbed Emma's throat. She squeezed. Emma couldn't breathe. She tried to push Sarah away, but Sarah was strong. Anger gave her strength. Emma fell to the ground. Sarah pounced on her. She continued squeezing her throat. Emma was struggling. Her eyes had grown wide from fear, from shock. She couldn't believe it. Her sister was killing her. 1 minute passed. Emma's struggling slowed. 2 minutes passed. Emma became motionless. Sarah released her hands. She pulled back. Emma lay on the ground. Her eyes were open, but staring. She was dead. Sarah was trembling. What had she done? She'd killed Emma. She'd killed her sister. Panic. Sarah looked around. Had anyone seen? No, the garden was empty. Everyone was inside. Preparing for the wedding, Sarah thought. What would she do? She needed to hide the body. Sarah dragged Emma to the pond. She was heavy, but Sarah managed. She pushed Emma into the pond. The body fell into the water. It sank. A minute later, it disappeared. The water became still again. Emma was gone. Sarah stood up. She cleaned her hands. She looked at her dress. No blood. Good. No one would notice. Sarah turned back. She walked toward the manor. The plan had begun to work. Sarah returned to the room. Emma's room, now Sarah's room. The wedding dress was still there. Emma's wedding dress. Sarah took off her dress. She put on the wedding dress. It fit perfectly. They were twins. Same body, same size. Sarah looked in the mirror. She saw Emma. No, it wasn't Emma. It was Sarah. But she looked like Emma. Sarah took a deep breath. She composed herself. Now she was Emma, not Sarah. Emma! There was a knock at the door. A servant entered. It was time for the wedding, she said. Sarah smiled. She copied Emma's smile. She said she was ready. The servant didn't notice. Sarah thought she was Emma. The plan was working. The wedding began. In the church, 100 people attended. The Ashford family, the Thornton family, friends, servants. Sarah walked as Emma. The wedding dress was magnificent. Everyone was impressed. Lord Thomas stood at the altar. He looked at Sarah. He thought she was Emma. He smiled. Sarah smiled too. It was Emma's smile. The priest began to speak. Marriage vows, holy union, promise before God. Sarah listened. Her conscience was uneasy, but she suppressed it. There was no turning back now. The priest asked, "Emma, do you accept Lord Thomas as your husband?" Sarah answered, "Yes, I do." A lie. But no one knew, the priest asked. "Lord Thomas, do you accept Emma as your wife?" Thomas answered. "Yes, I do." They were married. Sarah had married Lord Thomas as Emma, the perfect crime. No one had noticed. Sarah had succeeded. She had killed Emma. She had taken Emma's place. She had married Lord Thomas. But what would happen now? Could Sarah play Emma's role? Wouldn't Lord Thomas notice? And Emma's body? Would it remain hidden in the pond forever? Sarah's new life had begun. But this life was full of lies. 30 years of lies. It was beginning. After the wedding, Sarah and Thomas moved to Thornton Manor. It was a large house in the Yorkshire countryside. 20 rooms, a large garden, servants. Sarah was impressed. Was this her new home? Not the home Emma deserved, the home Sarah deserved. Thomas was happy. His wife Emma was beautiful, kind, the perfect wife. But Sarah was panicking. Night came. The first night. The wedding night. Thomas approached Sarah. He wanted to show affection. Emma was his wife. He loved her. Sarah was tense. Thomas knew her as Emma. But Sarah didn't know Thomas. They had never talked. All the conversations had been with Emma. Did Thomas notice something? Sarah's tension? No. He thought it was the excitement of a new bride. It was normal. Sarah played a role. She acted like Emma. Kind, shy, affectionate. Thomas didn't notice. The first night ended. Sarah breathed a sigh of relief. She had succeeded. But this was just the beginning. She would have to play the role for 30 years. The first month was difficult. Thomas asked Sarah, thinking she was Emma, questions about her childhood, about her memories, about things she liked. Sarah didn't know. She didn't know Emma's memories. They were twins but had separate experiences. Sarah improvised. She made up answers. Did Thomas suspect? No. Memory could be deceptive sometimes, he thought. Normal. But Sarah was afraid every day. Would Thomas notice? Would someone from the family notice? At the end of the first month, the Ashford family came to visit. Lord Henry, Lady Margaret, Sarah's real family. Sarah was panicking. Would her mother and father notice? Would they recognise Sarah? The visit happened. Sarah played Emma's role perfectly. Kind, affectionate, happy. Her mother and father were happy. Their daughter had found a wonderful husband. They didn't ask about Sarah. They didn't ask, "Where is Sarah?" Emma was important. Sarah was invisible. It had always been that way. Sarah felt pain inside. Even her mother and father didn't care about Sarah. But at the same time, she was relieved. No one was looking for Sarah. No one noticed Sarah was missing. If Emma had been missing, everyone would have searched. But Sarah, invisible. The first year passed. Sarah got used to Emma's role. She learned Thomas's habits, his favourite foods, his favourite activities, his way of speaking. She remembered how Emma behaved, kind, cheerful, patient. Sarah copied these. Thomas was happy, his wife was perfect, but Sarah was unhappy. Every day a lie, every day a role, every day fear. At night she had nightmares, Emma's face in the pond, staring, accusing Sarah. Sarah was sleepless, Thomas noticed. Sarah said she had insomnia. Thomas was understanding. It could be new marriage stress. One day Sarah went back to Ashford Manor, to the pond, to where Emma died. The water was still, nothing was visible. Emma lay somewhere there, in the depths. Sarah apologised. She apologised to Emma, but she couldn't take it back. Emma was dead. Sarah was living, with Emma's life. Sarah cried. Then she returned, to Thornton Manor, to Thomas, to the lies. In 1867, Sarah became pregnant. Thomas was very happy. He would be a father. Emma seemed happy too, but Sarah was afraid. A child, Sarah's child, but everyone would think it was Emma's child. The baby was born, a boy, Edward. healthy and beautiful. Thomas took the baby in his arms, his son, Emma's son. Sarah looked at the baby. Real. Her child was real, but born into a life of lies. Sarah loved the baby. She felt a strong bond. This was her child, her real child. But Edward would never know Sarah as his mother. He would know her as Emma. Wrong name, wrong identity. Sarah was sad, but she continued. There was no other choice. In 1870, the second child was born. A girl, Victoria, again healthy and beautiful. The family was complete. Thomas, Emma, Sarah, Edward, Victoria. From the outside, a perfect family. Happy, wealthy, healthy. But from the inside, Sarah was lying every day, playing a role every day. The children grew. Edward and Victoria loved their mother. Emma was a kind and affectionate mother. Sarah truly loved the children. They were genuine. Being with them brought happiness. But at night the nightmares continued. Emma, the pond, accusation. Sarah's conscience was not at peace. It never would be. By 1870, Sarah had been living as Emma for 5 years. Thomas had never suspected. The family had never suspected. No one had suspected. Sarah had played the perfect role. But there was a problem. Sarah no longer knew who she was. She had lived as Emma for 5 years. Every day Emma, every hour Emma, every minute Emma. The name Sarah was being forgotten. Sarah's identity was disappearing. Sometimes when she looked in the mirror, she saw Emma, not Sarah. This frightened Sarah. Was she becoming Emma, or had Sarah already died? One night Sarah talked to herself. She said her name. I am Sarah, she said it out loud. I am Sarah, not Emma. Sarah. But the words felt empty. She didn't believe it. She no longer knew who she was. 5 years had passed. Sarah was living Emma's life. Perfect wife, perfect mother. But inside she was losing herself. Her identity was being erased. She was becoming Emma. 25 more years remained. Could Sarah endure? Or would she completely become Emma? And Emma's ghost? The nightmares? The guilt? Was Sarah's mind collapsing? Sarah had been living as Emma for 10 years. 10 years of lies. 10 years of role-playing. 10 years of fear. Thomas had noticed nothing. His wife was Emma. They had a happy marriage. Edward was 8 years old. Victoria was 5 years old. They were good children. They loved their mother. From the outside, everything was perfect. But inside Sarah, everything was collapsing. The nightmares had intensified. Every night she saw Emma, in the pond, dead, staring, accusing Sarah. Sarah couldn't sleep. Thomas noticed. Sarah said she had insomnia. She went to the doctor. The doctor gave her sleeping pills. Sarah took the pills, but the nightmares didn't stop. They got worse. One night Sarah screamed in her sleep. Thomas woke up. He shook Sarah. Sarah woke up. She was drenched in sweat. She was crying. Thomas asked. He asked what happened. Sarah couldn't answer. She couldn't tell about Emma. Couldn't tell about the murder. Sarah just said bad dreams. Thomas comforted her. He held her. Everything will be okay, he said. But Sarah knew nothing would be okay. 10 years had passed. The guilt hadn't decreased. It had increased. Edward turned 11. Victoria turned 8. Edward was a smart child. He asked questions. He was curious about his mother. One day Edward asked, "Mother, how did you meet Father?" Sarah froze. She didn't know the story. How had Emma and Thomas met? Sarah wasn't there. She didn't know. Sarah improvised. She said they met at a social event. She said Thomas was kind. She said they fell in love. Edward was happy. Nice story, he said. But Sarah was panicking inside. Was the story correct? Would Emma have told it like this, or differently? Thomas entered the room. Edward repeated the story. "Father, Mother told it like this," he said. Thomas smiled. "Yes, that's right," he said. But he added a detail. He described their first dance. He said Emma wore a blue dress. Sarah was surprised. She didn't know. Had Emma worn a blue dress? Sarah wasn't there. But Sarah smiled. "Yes, I remember," she said. "Blue dress. A lie." But Thomas believed it. Edward and Victoria were happy, but Sarah was afraid. She was making small mistakes. Would someone notice? In 1880, Lord Henry and Lady Margaret visited Thornton Manor, Sarah's real mother and father, 15 years later. They hadn't seen Sarah for 15 years, but they didn't know. They thought she was Emma. Lady Margaret hugged Sarah, thinking she was Emma. "My daughter, you're so beautiful," she said. "Are you happy?" Sarah said yes. "I'm very happy." A lie. But it made her mother happy. Lord Henry played with Edward and Victoria, his grandchildren, Emma's children, but actually Sarah's children. Sarah watched. She felt pain. Her mother and father never asked about Sarah. Where is Sarah? What is Sarah doing? They never asked. Sarah was invisible. She had been invisible 15 years ago. She was invisible now. Lady Margaret asked Sarah, as Emma, "Do you see Sarah, your sister?" Sarah, in Emma's role, answered, "No, I don't. It's been a long time." Lady Margaret was sad. Sarah was a quiet girl, she said. She never married. She lives at Ashford Manor, alone. She doesn't talk to anyone. Sarah was surprised. What did she mean? Lady Margaret explained. Sarah changed after Emma's wedding. She became very quiet. She shut herself in her room. She didn't talk to anyone. A year later, she got sick. Fever, pneumonia. She died in 1866. Sarah couldn't breathe. Her mother and father thought Sarah had died in 1866, 14 years ago. But Sarah was here, living, as Emma. Sarah, in Emma's role, looked sad. "How sad," she said. "Poor Sarah." Lady Margaret said yes. Poor girl. She was never happy. Sarah cried inside. Her mother and father hadn't cared about Sarah. Sarah died and they just said, "Poor girl." If it had been Emma, their hearts would have broken. But Sarah, just a footnote. Sarah hated her mother and father. She hated Emma. She hated everyone. But outwardly she smiled. She continued Emma's role. The visit ended. Her mother and father left. They hadn't noticed anything. Sarah had been living as Emma for 18 years. 18 years of lies. Sarah couldn't endure anymore. The nightmares came every night. Emma, the pond, dead Emma, accusing Emma. Sarah started drinking alcohol. Sleeping pills weren't enough. Alcohol helped. A little, Thomas noticed. Why was Sarah drinking so much wine? Was there a problem? Sarah said no. There was no problem. She was just tired. But Thomas was starting to suspect. His wife had changed. She wasn't like before. Emma was kind and affectionate. Now Sarah, as Emma, was tense and distant. She didn't smile. She didn't talk. Thomas asked, "Emma, will you talk to me? Is there a problem?" Sarah couldn't answer. She couldn't tell the truth. She couldn't say who she was. Sarah just said she was tired. The children, the house, the responsibilities. She was tired. Thomas understood. Maybe she needed rest. But Sarah knew. Rest wouldn't help. The problem was guilt. Edward was 18 years old. A young man, smart and observant. One day Edward asked his mother, "Mother, are you okay? You seem unhappy." Sarah was surprised. Edward had noticed. Her son had noticed. Sarah smiled. "I'm fine," she said. "Why do you ask?" Edward answered. "You used to smile," he said. "Now you don't smile. You used to talk. Now you're quiet. You've changed." Sarah froze. Edward was right. Sarah had changed. Because Sarah was tired of being Emma. Sarah lied to Edward. "I'm getting old," she said. "Old age changes people." Edward didn't believe it, but he didn't insist. But Sarah was afraid. Edward was suspicious. Maybe he would notice. His mother wasn't Emma. She was Sarah. Sarah knew she needed to be more careful. But how? She'd been playing a role for 20 years. She no longer even knew who she was. 20 years had passed. Sarah was living as Emma. But she couldn't endure any more. The guilt was eating her. The nightmares wouldn't stop. Alcohol wasn't helping. And now Edward was suspicious. Her son was starting to notice. What would Sarah do? Could she tell the truth? Or would she lie until she died? 10 more years remained. Until 1895. Could Sarah endure? Sarah had been living as Emma for 25 years. One day, an old servant came to Thornton Manor. Agnes. She was 60 years old. She used to work at Ashford Manor when Emma and Sarah were children. Agnes saw Sarah, thinking she was Emma. She smiled. "Emma, you've grown up," she said. "You're so beautiful." Sarah, in Emma's role, smiled. She thanked her. But Agnes noticed something. She looked at Sarah carefully. Her face, her eyes. Something was different. Agnes asked, "Emma, are you okay? You look different." Sarah tensed. "Different? How different?" Agnes explained. "Your face. It used to be softer. Now it's hard. Your eyes. They used to be warm. Now they're cold." Sarah was panicking. Was Agnes noticing? Did she understand she wasn't Emma? Sarah, in Emma's role, smiled. "I'm getting old," she said. "Old age changes people." Agnes seemed to accept it, but she was still suspicious. Agnes then asked, "Do you see Sarah, your sister?" Sarah, in Emma's role, answered, "No, Sarah died years ago." Agnes was surprised. "Sarah died?" "I didn't know." Sarah, in Emma's role, said yes. Pneumonia, in 1866. Agnes was sad. Poor Sarah. She never received any love. Then Agnes said something strange. "Emma, you were always different from Sarah. You were kind. She was cold. You deserved love. She didn't. Sarah was angry inside. Everyone had thought that way. Emma was good. Sarah was bad. Always like that. But Sarah, in Emma's role, smiled. She thanked her. Agnes left." Sarah breathed a sigh of relief. Agnes hadn't noticed, or had she but said nothing. But Sarah was afraid. Old people were dangerous. They could notice. Victoria was 23 years old. She was getting married to a young lord. It would be a beautiful wedding. Sarah was happy. Her daughter was getting married. But at the same time, she was sad. Victoria would leave. Her new life would begin. Wedding preparations began. Victoria chose a wedding dress. Sarah helped. One day, Victoria asked her mother, "Mother, were you afraid when you married father?" Sarah, in Emma's role, answered, "Yes, I was afraid, but I was also excited." Victoria smiled. "I am too," she said. Then Victoria asked, "Mother, did you ever regret it? Getting married?" Sarah froze. Did she regret it? Sarah, in Emma's role, answered, "No, I never regretted it. I love your father. I love you." Half true. Sarah loved Thomas. She loved the children, but she had stolen Emma's life. She regretted that. Victoria was happy. "You're a wonderful mother," she said. "I love you." Sarah wanted to cry. Victoria loved Sarah, but she didn't know she was Sarah. She thought she was Emma. The wedding happened. Victoria got married. It was a beautiful ceremony. Sarah, as Emma, cried. She said they were tears of happiness, but in reality they were tears of guilt. 28 years. 28 years of lies. When would it end? At the end of 1893, Thomas fell ill. He was 63 years old, heart problems. The doctors treated him. But Thomas was weakening. He was aging. Sarah, as Emma, stayed by her husband's side. She cared for him. She loved him. Thomas said to Sarah, thinking she was Emma, "Emma, you've been a wonderful wife. I love you." Sarah cried. She loved Thomas, but Thomas didn't love Sarah. He loved Emma. Thomas recovered. But now he was old, weak. Sarah, as Emma, was also aging. She was 48 years old. Her hair was greying. Her face was wrinkling. When she looked in the mirror, she saw Emma, or was it Sarah? She no longer knew. She had forgotten who she was. Was she Emma? Was she Sarah? Both. Neither. Sarah was confused. Her identity was lost. 28 years had passed. Sarah was approaching 50 years old. Thomas was aging. The children had grown. Sarah's secret was still hidden. But Sarah couldn't endure anymore. The guilt was unbearable. Every day, every night, Emma's ghost. Sarah made a decision. She had to tell the truth before she died. But when? How? Sarah would be on her deathbed. Then she would tell. The final confession. After 30 years, January 1895. Sarah fell ill. Pneumonia. The doctors treated her. But Sarah was weakening. She was 50 years old. She had lived as Emma for 30 years. Now she was exhausted. Thomas stayed by her side. He was afraid. Would he lose his wife? Edward and Victoria came. Was their mother dying? The doctors were hopeless. Sarah's days were numbered. Sarah lay in bed. She was breathing with difficulty, but her mind was clear. She had decided she would tell the truth before she died, March 1895. Sarah lived 2 more months, but now she was very weak. One day, Sarah called Thomas. She also called Edward and Victoria. Everyone came to the room. Sarah looked at them. 30 years. She had lived with these people for 30 years. She loved them, but she had lied. Now she would tell the truth. Thomas asked, "Emma, what happened? Do you want to say something?" Sarah said yes. She had something to say, something very important. Everyone listened. Sarah took a deep breath. Then she began to speak. The confession. Sarah said this, "I am not Emma." Thomas was shocked. What did she mean? Sarah continued, "I'm Sarah, Emma's twin. Emma died. 30 years ago, the wedding morning, I killed her." The room fell silent. Thomas couldn't believe it. What was she saying? Wasn't she Emma? Was she Sarah? Sarah told everything. The wedding morning, the garden, the pond, the fight. She told how she strangled Emma. She told how she threw the body in the pond. Then she told how she wore Emma's dress, how she married Thomas as Emma. 30 years. 30 years of lies. 30 years of role-playing. Thomas fell to the floor. Edward tried to catch him. Victoria screamed. Was Mother a murderer? Sarah cried. She apologized, but she said there was no other choice. She was jealous. Emma had everything. Sarah had nothing, Thomas asked. Did you lie for 30 years? I thought I married Emma, but you were Sarah? Sarah said yes, you loved Emma, but Emma died. I took her place. I'm sorry, Edward asked. Are we your children? Or Emma's children? Sarah answered. You are my children, Sarah's children, but you thought you were Emma's children. I'm sorry, Victoria cried. Who is my mother? Emma or Sarah? Sarah answered. I am Sarah. I was always Sarah. But you knew me as Emma. Thomas stood up. He left the room. He said nothing. Edward and Victoria remained. They looked at their mother. They didn't recognize her anymore. Sarah was alone. She had told the truth. But no one believed. No one accepted. A few days later, Sarah died. Thomas came to the room. He looked at Sarah. She was dying. Sarah looked at Thomas. She apologized. She said she loved Thomas, but also that she had lied. Thomas didn't answer. He was still in shock. He didn't even know who his wife was. Sarah took her last breath. She closed her eyes. She died. 30 years of lies came to an end. Sarah had died. She had told the truth. But what would happen now? Would the family believe? Would the police investigate? Would Emma's body be found? Or would Sarah's confession just be seen as deathbed madness? Would the truth emerge? Or would it remain a secret forever? Sarah's funeral was held. A small ceremony. Family, a few friends, servants. The gravestone was written, Lady Emma Thornton, beloved wife and mother, 1845 to 1895. Emma, not Sarah, Emma. Even after death, Sarah was remembered as Emma. Ironic. Tragic. After the funeral, Thomas, Edward and Victoria talked. Victoria asked, Did Mother tell the truth? Or was she mad? Edward answered, I don't know. It was a strange confession. But was it logical? Thomas was silent. 30 years. He thought she was Emma for 30 years. But was she Sarah? Thomas remembered. His wife's behaviour. She had changed in recent years. She was tense, distant. She had nightmares. Maybe she was Sarah. Maybe she was suffering from guilt. But there was no proof. The family informed the police. They told about Sarah's confession. The police investigated. They went to Ashford Manor Garden. They looked at the pond. But 30 years had passed. Finding evidence was impossible. The pond was dredged, but nothing was found. Emma's body wasn't there, or it lay too deep. The police closed the case. No evidence, no investigation. Officially, Sarah's confession was deathbed madness. It wasn't real. Thomas, Edward and Victoria decided. They didn't know the truth. Maybe she was Sarah. Maybe she was Emma. They would never know. But one thing was certain. They had loved her for 30 years, whoever she was. Thomas had loved Emma, or Sarah. 30 years of happy marriage. Edward and Victoria had loved their mother, whoever she was. She was a good mother. Did identity matter? Or did love and affection matter, the family decided? She would be remembered as Emma, not Sarah. Emma, because they had loved her as Emma, Sarah's legacy. Sarah's story remained a secret. No one knew. No newspaper wrote about it. Society didn't hear. Only the family knew. And they were silent. But the story raised some questions. What is identity? A name, a role, or a feeling from within? Sarah lived as Emma for 30 years. Did she become Emma? Or was she still Sarah? Who determines who we are, ourselves or others? Sarah died as Emma. The gravestone says Emma. The family remembers her as Emma. But Sarah was Sarah. She was always Sarah. A secret. A new century. Thomas died. He was 80 years old. He was buried next to Emma, Sarah. The gravestones side by side. Lord Thomas Thornton, Lady Emma Thornton. Emma, not Sarah. Edward and Victoria continued their lives. They remembered their mother with love. They never knew who she was. Did they care? Maybe. The story was forgotten. The secret was buried. Sarah and Emma both faded into history. But one truth remained. For 30 years, a woman lived her sister's life, the perfect crime, the perfect lie, the perfect role, and no one ever learned the truth. Final thoughts. Sarah's story was tragic. Jealousy made her a monster. She killed Emma, but then she suffered guilt for 30 years. Every day, every night, she told the truth, but no one believed. She died as Emma, not as Sarah. She lost her identity. She lost herself. In Victorian times, women were invisible. Sarah was even more invisible. Even after death, Sarah was invisible. She was Emma, ironic, tragic, unforgettable. In Victorian England, women's value was tied to their appearance and social status. Sarah lived in Emma's shadow. She was invisible. She wasn't loved. Jealousy destroyed her. She committed murder. Then she lied for 30 years. But the most tragic part is this. Sarah became Emma. She lost her identity. She forgot who she was. She told the truth, but no one believed. Sarah died as Emma, not as Sarah. Victorian society made Sarah invisible, even after death. Today, identity is still debated. Who determines who we are? Ourselves? Society? Sarah's story is a warning. Jealousy is destructive. Lies cannot be sustained. Guilt is inevitable. But it also leaves a question. Was Sarah really Sarah? Or had she become Emma? 30 years of role-playing. Who was real? Who was the lie? Maybe both were real. Maybe both were lies. Maybe Sarah and Emma were the same person. Twins. Two halves of one soul. One died, the other lived. But both were lost. Victorian secrets always remained in darkness. So did Sarah's secret.